Okay, let's look at these. You just tried these. So what did you do to solve for y now? What did you do first? Minus 4x from both sides. You get 3y equals 15 minus 4x. And now what? Divide both sides by 3. You could divide each one by 3, or you did one whole division. Y equals, now if I divide each one by 3, because each one is going to be divided by 3, is there anything you would simplify? 15 divided by 3 is 5 minus 4x over 3. So if I did simplify that, if you wrote it as, let's say you wrote it as y equals 15 minus 4x over 3, could you reduce the 15 and 3 right here? Well, you could, but you still have to divide the negative 4 by the 3. So either way, you could have this answer or you could have this answer. But you wouldn't just cancel these and leave the negative 4 without being divided by 3. Do you see the difference? Okay, and that's what's important in the next problem as well. Here we want to solve for h. So what did you do first to solve for h? And this is, by the way, probably surface area of a cylinder, because here we have two circles. Area of a circle is pi r squared. And then we have 2 times pi times the radius times the height, which gives you the surface area around the outside of a cylinder. So what did you do first? Subtract 2 pi r squared, right? From both sides. So you have s minus 2 pi r squared equals 2 pi r h. And notice these are not like terms, because this is an r squared and this is an r. Okay, now what could we do to get h by itself? What is happening to h, and what would you need to do to undo that? Two pi r, both sides by 2 pi r. And so then I'm just going to write my answer down here because I ran out of space. H equals s minus 2 pi r squared over 2 pi r. Now, some of you were asking when you solved this problem for h, you were asking, could you cancel here? And it's sort of the same concept as when we had the numbers up above. You could reduce the 3 into the 15, but you also would have to divide the 3 into the 4. And the same thing is happening here. So if you did want to reduce, you could leave it just like this, and this is perfectly fine. But if you were noticing, oh, I think there's some things that could reduce here, the thing is that you have to have s divided by 2 pi r minus 2 pi r squared divided by 2 pi r. And that would give you h equals s divided by 2 pi r, because these don't reduce. Does anybody know what would be left if you divided 2 and 2, pi and pi, and r into r squared? Yeah, it would just be, actually it would be just an r, because this one has an r squared and this one only has an r. So the only thing left is 1r. But you see how that this denominator is dividing into both. Okay? So that's an important concept, and that's going to come up in your more advanced math classes too. You can't just cancel with one of them because you're dividing that denominator into both terms that are not alike. Okay? So this is, if you got this answer right here, this is perfectly fine. You don't have to do the reducing. It's just that some of you were asking if you could. Okay? All right, let's go on to the next page, and we'll start, I'll do, this time I'll actually do B and D, and we'll have you go back and do A and C. So if I look at B, it says I want to solve for y, meaning I want to get y by itself. So what would be the first thing to do to get y by itself? How could you get rid of x on this side? Exactly. So I would subtract x from both sides. And this is a really important step that a lot of people miss. this negative sign does not go away because it technically is a -1y. So you would have negative y, and you could put the 1 there if you want, equals 10 minus x. Another way of writing that is negative y equals negative x plus 10. Those are exactly the same thing. And I was mentioning before this idea of the commutative property of addition. It doesn't matter which order we add in, as long as we keep the sign with the appropriate number. Did I get y by itself? Not yet, because this is negative y. So how could I get rid of that negative sign? Exactly. I'm going to divide both sides by -1. I could do the same thing here. Divide both sides by -1. And then my answer will be, here I'll do it in a different color, negative divided by a negative is a positive y equals -10. And then what would I get for the x? Exactly, plus x. See how we get the same thing here. Y equals x minus 10. Same thing, right? This is my answer, and I should have given myself more space. Sorry, it's all crowded. Okay? Either -10 plus x or x minus 10. Does anybody know what this is a formula for? P equals 2L plus 2W? What does that stand for? You have 3 different variables there. Perimeter. Yes, perimeter is 2 lengths plus 2 widths. So if we have a rectangle, and this is the perimeter of a rectangle, usually we refer to the length as the long side and the width as the short side. But really they are interchangeable. One does not have to be the long side. One doesn't have to be the short side. It's just that we differentiate that with a rectangle, you have 2 different sides. And then they're parallel sides. So you have 2 of the lengths and 2 of the widths. Whenever you have a problem dealing with a rectangle, it's probably a good idea to draw a rectangle. Okay, now if I want to get W by itself, what can I do to solve for W? I want to solve this whole thing for W. Minus the 2L, I have P minus 2L equals what? 2W, good. And then what would I do to get W by itself? Divide both sides by 2. And so you get P minus 2L divided by 2 equals W. Now when you see those 2 2's, can you just cancel them? No, you can't just cancel them. You could either write this as P divided by 2 minus 2L divided by 2 equals W. And then you would cancel them. P divided by 2 minus L equals W. These are both the same. They mean the same thing. So it doesn't matter which one you have, just so long as you don't just see those 2's and slash them. Oops, and I got off the page. Okay, go ahead and try A and C, and then we'll share out on those.